Yeah, we're live.
All right, we are live. So hopefully there is somebody watching us. Anybody. If you're there, chime in, make a comment. We'll put it on the screen and join the conversation. If you want to tell us how much we suck, that's fine. At least we know you're there and you're listening. Wanted to jump in, bring the podcast back. We're a month into the season, so pump a little life into the league. So Rocket, how's everything at the top?
It's a little surprising. I didn't expect to be doing this well so far, but obviously it feels good.
Yeah, I bet it does. Each week, the object is getting further and further away. You keep getting smaller as the weeks go by. So I'm hoping that we can get that turned around. I don't know. It's been a rough start in Ohio, to say the least. But before we get into the performances, what do you think about Fantrax so far, now that we've got a month under our belt since the change?
I think it's been better than last year. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, I've been using Fantrax, so I'm comfortable with it. There's some things that I still prefer I prefer Yahoo for, but I think it's been a positive change for the league.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think CBS was the absolute worst. So I think the bar was really low. I agree with you. I think Yahoo's app is a little more desirable, but I really love the fact that we have those minor leaguers at our disposal. And quite frankly, if my season keeps going the way it's going, I'll be glad to view people's minor leaguers as I have to start making trades because my team sucks. So we'll see how that goes. But getting into this season, I think some of the things that have really stood out. Obviously, Rocket seems to be a wagon. I think that you look pretty unstoppable so far. I have my suspicions if the Golden Tee Eagles are for real. Comtois, I've kind of been predicting him as a playoff team. I feel as though for like the last several years. So I'm going to keep riding that this year. I think his team finally has arrived after many years of rebuilding, which is good to see. I think Bed-Stuy is probably your biggest competition. I think his roster is really loaded. So I think he's a little bit of a sleeping giant right now. To see him at 500 so far is kind of surprising. Milltown Lobsters, injuries are crushing them. So we'll see if they can, keep that afloat. Hupea, I know you have strong feelings. You think they may be a playoff team. If nothing else, they may finish higher than Ohio. Do I suck so far? The answer is yes. I'm hoping they'll change. And then, Four Horsemen obviously seems to be, packing it in a little bit, going for the rebuild, which is a little bit surprising because I actually feel like they have some decent pieces. But I guess it's better to, sell high than wait it out. But what has been your biggest surprise so far this season?
I would say it has to be Corey. I think Corey, I was expecting him to be like the doormat, like always. And, so far he's a little down, going into this week, but he's winning big against the Lobsters. He's going to be, I don't know, he's going to be what, top 4, after games lock. I mean, this isn't the typical Hupaya team. I mean, he has good pitching.
He does, and truthfully, he might be benefiting from that auto draft that he got the benefit of. It looked in the draft room, it looked hilarious because everybody was injured, and now everybody's getting healthy, and you never know. Get Senga back and make a couple moves, and maybe this is the year. Maybe Corey sneaks into the playoffs this year at some of our expenses. I hope not, but could happen.
I never thought he'd make the playoffs again. I really never thought he'd be in again. But I mean, this is it. Just imagine if he didn't trade Witt, though, if he didn't trade Volpe, where he'd be right now. He might have one of the best rosters. He still needs hitting. His hitting's still kind of bad. But
yeah, he needs Bo Bichette to remember how to hit a baseball.
Yeah, but yeah, Bichette has been awful, and the underlying statistics on Bichette is not pretty either. This is like full regression. And just a couple years ago, Bichette was untouchable for Corey, and now I don't think you could get anything for him. So
it's tough because he doesn't run anymore, and if he's not going to have power, he's not. He's definitely not what he once was. Not really the cornerstone. If you will. Looking down the standings, I do think Comtois is for real. I think as long as he stays engaged and locked in for the season, I do think that his team has a real opportunity this year to be, certainly a top 6 team to make the playoffs. But I think he's even better than that. What are your thoughts on his squad?
He has another team. His pitching's pretty good. Like I would say he has one of the top half pitching rosters, and I think he just needs some hitting too. He's a little light for bats. The Westberg pickup was really good so far for him. But yeah, he's beating Golden Tees, this week pretty handily. Well, it's a close matchup, but the result is going to be like a 6-3-1 win him. So yeah, so far so good. Like you said, as long as he stays engaged, he has a good chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think another team that right now is on the outside looking in, but definitely has, the pieces if they start performing a little better is SCF. I don't think that he's been a playoff team the last few years, but, J-Rod's really bringing him down. I don't know that Ellie De La Cruz is going to continue doing this. I think obviously Ellie is a stud, but, I don't think he's going to be this all year long. So at some point, those things are going to balance a little bit.
Right.
Austin Riley really hasn't been hitting for him very much. Trey Turner going down is a significant, injury for him. But I do think this could be the year that you kind of see the Comtoises, the SCFs, maybe Hupea, like, the people who usually don't have playoff spots reserved for them, bumping teams out that historically have had playoff aspirations. I know one very well that they right now would certainly deserve the playoff spot more than other teams. So what do you think about SCF? Is for real or maybe not so much?
I think it'd be good for the league for him to be good again, because like a good Austin is, it's best for the league, but I don't think so. I don't.
Agreed. We need heel Austin is what we need. We need like arrogance. We need chirping. That would go a long way, I think, for bringing some camaraderie back to the league.
Right. If Austin was in my position, like overall right now, he'd already be crowning himself as the league winner. So it's just there's a lot of guys in Austin's roster that probably shouldn't be. Like he has some dead weight that he should cut. But I agree, Ellie's been phenomenal. But he's not going to keep it up like this all season. His K rate will catch up with them. He'll have some droughts across during the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Who do you view right now? I'll ask you as the take off your podcast hat, put on the the leader in the clubhouse, and defending champ, I believe. Right? You won the league last year.
I won the league.
Yeah. Who do you feel is your biggest threat right now? Which roster do you view as the biggest threat? I know for me, I think Bed-Stuy is your biggest threat. I think you look at that offensive lineup and it is pretty stacked, up and down the lineup. And then, the pitching is not a weakness either. So, I actually would probably put their roster as the top roster in the league, but I'm curious if you would agree with that, or who you view as the top threat to the number one spot that you currently hold.
On paper, it's definitely him. It's absolutely him on paper. But again, like Sam, he just has some dead weight on his roster. Like he's holding on to DeGrom, like Jeffrey Springs, Gavin Williams, like hoping they're gonna help him later in the year. And who knows? I mean, they may or may not. And he has other guys like Cassis, Bayo. like that are just taking up roster spots for him right now. Like he's going to lose to Socho this week, and it doesn't help when you're just going in there with not a full bench, like impacting your lineup each week. But from like a paper standpoint, he's loaded. Like I think he had the best keepers going into the draft, like without a doubt.
Yeah, no doubt. And Socho beating Bed-Stuy was definitely not on my bingo card. So if anybody pulled that on their DraftKings parlay, they're going to be in for a big payday. I do think one of the things that stands out to me so far in the first month of the season has been injuries. And, I think that there's been some really significant injuries. So, some of them I jotted down a little bit. I think that most heavily hit teams so far, probably Ferrara and probably Dumont. I think that they've had a real rash of impactful injuries, more on the offensive side. But you look at Ferrara's team, and Bellinger, Yelich, who is playing like not MVP, but he was playing really well.
He was really well, yeah.
Yeah, getting that back flaring up, which is kind of what derailed him the last couple of years. I think that should be a pretty significant concern. And then Trout, like that sucks. It sucks for baseball. It sucks for Ferrara. You hate to see Trout just continuously. He is the modern Ken Griffey Jr. And
is Trout after this year? Is Trout a keeper like anymore?
It's tough. Like I think if you're a roster like Bed-Stuy, probably not. Quite frankly, right. The risk is just so high. And it's like a proven fact now. This is a pattern that he's going to miss a lot of time. And it's just, like I said, it's too bad.
Stanton is healthier than this guy.
Brutal. Just that's never good. Never good. So I think Ferrara had a lot of promise coming into the season, and it's falling apart pretty rapidly. Hopefully he can bounce that back. But and then the same with Milltown. I think that they've had several injuries. Lou Bob, it's the same thing almost every year. I think he's had one healthy season, and that keeps you coming back. But I think he's going to be back in the next couple of weeks, and Milltown is staying afloat. He's going to win this week. So he'll be right there. But some of the other key injuries, Hopea crushing to lose Strider when you're actually finally making a little headway. That's brutal. Myself, Royce Lewis does Royce Lewis things. He hits a home run in his first at bat of the season and then tears the quad off of his leg. So, that's really unfortunate. South Carolina losing Trey Turner the other night, and I think I saw he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, I think so.
That's a big chunk of time.
That's huge.
It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Having to pivot to Willie Castro from Trey Turner, that's not ideal.
No.
And then, Theo, I can't remember if this was right after the keepers, but losing Garrett Cole for the prolonged period of time. And then they've been kind of squirrely about his rehab. So I think I would be a little concerned about that. Theo's managed his pitching extremely well. He crushed in the draft with Imanaga and with Yoshi there. So,
and he picked up Jared Jones before the season started.
Yeah, which is awesome. So, hasn't really hurt him, but he could just be lights out on the pitching side if he gets Cole and Kershaw back. Which injuries do you think have been the most impactful?
I think we talked about most of them. Just trying to see who else is here. I feel like every team has been impacted. Like, so far it's been nuts. Like how many there've been. Trying to think. Like who else? I think we hit on it.
Yeah, I think the Trout, the Strider, like those are just such premier players. It's just brutal for anybody who owns them. And then just to cross over to real life, it's just those are game changing, season changing injuries. They could be. So that stinks.
None of this is good for baseball. Like with the way this is going with pitching, it's awful.
Yeah, it really is. And looking at it from a keeper perspective, some of these injuries probably, I don't think any of them are like predictable, but I always go back to a guy myself keeping Snell. In hindsight, that was really stupid because there's a lot of information out there that says if you sign so late, you're going to probably be terrible or injured. And Snell's been both. So,
it's tough because he won the Cy Young last year, right? So it's hard not to keep a guy like that, but it just depends on like what your other options were at the time.
Yeah. No, we've I think we've definitely seen our fair share of tough keepers that have blown up in people's faces.
Yeah.
Are there any that stick out to you as kind of being the worst of the worst?
Oh, definitely Josiah Gray by Corey. I think that was the worst kept player like this year.
Yeah, no, I think that is definitely fair. I think it's easy a month in hindsight to kind of cherry pick. Like Nolan Jones, right? Like already dropped. But he was coming off of a strong season. He plays in cores, you can see the case, but yeah, I don't think there was ever going to be a case that Josiah Gray should have been kept, much less probably not even drafted in the first 2 rounds of our draft.
Maybe not even drafted at all. But Nolan Jones, though, like at least as a keeper coming in, good keeper coming into the year. With how he's performed and his injury now, it made sense that Corey cut bait.
Yeah, I know. Looking just around the league at some of the struggles of people underperforming, and obviously most of them have been from keepers. I think the ones that really stand out, and it might not necessarily be impacting league standings, but a Rosarena for the Four Horsemen has been just terrible.
And it doesn't look pretty under the hood either. Like it's
a lot of blue on that Savant page.
Yeah, it's scary. There's a couple like Corbin Carroll, same thing. Like he is apparently Victor Robles now, and it could be because of his shoulder, but there's going to get a point in the season where I know Dave is going to think, like, am I going to cut this guy? Like he's going to want to cut. If this doesn't turn around, if we're at the All-Star break, he may cut him. Like that's possible.
Yeah, no, I could see that, honestly, especially with that owner, because Dave's a madman. So I could definitely see him just saying, go to hell, drops Corbin Carroll.
Yeah.
I think that even like, I'll even look at your roster. You're running away with things, but, Matt Olson really hasn't been Matt Olson. So, there's still a lot of room for growth here for your team that's already built themselves quite a lead.
Ferrara said Matt Olson's such a good hitter, something to that effect, and then he's sucked ever since.
Well, then shout out Ferrara. I appreciate
he hacks me with him, but yeah, Olson's been real tough so far. Under the hood, it looks better, but we'll see how it goes.
Another guy that I'm really, really surprised by, and he is potentially impacting some of the standings is Nick Castellanos. Woof.
I think he's done.
He looks cooked.
I think he's toast. Yeah, he actually I think got a steal tonight to tie that category for their matchup, but I think he's done. I don't think he's ever coming back to what he was.
Yeah, no, I think that's a guy who got paid and then mailed it in because he just fell off a cliff immediately.
The Anthony Rendon experience right there.
Yeah. Jordan Walker, same thing with Comtois. Like, did not envision he would be back in the minor leagues a month into the season.
That's tough. Like, if I owned him, I already would have cut him. But I can understand not wanting to.
Yeah.
and I feel like the Cardinals didn't really give him much like leash either.
No, I agree. I mean, they're trying to win. They don't want to wait around. But I'm really shocked by that because, when he was called up last year, it seemed almost as close to can't miss as could be. But obviously, he's missing a lot of swing and miss. We already covered Bo Bichette. He's been really downright terrible. And then another tandem that's really kind of buoying South Carolina right now. Torkelson is really bad on a team that's actually pretty good. So I'm really surprised to see 0 home runs and not very good contact. And then J-Rod, and if I remember correctly, I think he started off really slow last year too. But I mean, right now he looks pretty. He does not look like a top 5 fantasy baseball player.
Right. Yeah. I think I read some quote from the Tigers manager that the next step for Torkelson is to be on like the bench next to him. So
yikes.
So I think if I'm Austin, I'm more concerned about Torkelson than J-Rod. I have more confidence in J-Rod, like rebounding, like Torkelson. I don't know. I don't personally like Torkelson, so this could be like bias on my end. But he ended the last year really strong. So
yeah, he let's see J-Rod perform like J-Rod. That would be good for baseball with so many injuries going on throughout the league. Those are the underperformers, but so far, who do you think has stood out as far as being best draft picks or best free agent pickups to this point?
I think one of the best draft picks was probably now Jack Flaherty, like round 15 by San Diego. That's definitely, he was, I think, 14 strikeouts this week, like huge in his matchup versus McCarthy. And the underlying stats look good. Like he might be back. And 15th round pick. I mean, that's
steal.
That's a steal, yeah. I had who was it? For you, I said Ozuna round 4. I would think if we were to, he's not a good guy, but he's good at baseball. So I think if we redrafted today, he's either going round 1 or round 2. I would hope round 1. There was someone else that I had. I think we already covered one of the best like free agent pickups. It was Jared Jones. I mean, he's been top 2 pitcher this year. Jared Jones, I would say, I don't want to like toot my own horn, but Sal Perez, a catcher, he's been smoking the ball like really good. And I just remembered Tyler O'Neill from Milltown. I think round 13, 12 or 13, and he's been great.
Yeah, he has. He's been a stud, and truthfully, he was dangled earlier in the season when he got his little concussion, and it was not aggressive, and that's really unfortunate. But I think one of the other honestly really good draft picks, and I think honestly he's got several of them. I think Theo had a really good draft. I would have never imagined that Imanaga would be as successful as he's been. An ERA under 1 at this point of the season is really impressive. Not sustainable, I'm sure.
Not sustainable, right? But
but to this point, that's been a great pickup for him. So it's early. These will all change by the time we do the next podcast, I'm sure. But it's been, a successful start to the campaign for many pickups, many players. The thing that, I always laugh at is there's always the retreads, that keep getting picked up, mainly, the Byron Buxtons of the world. And, the hopes and the dreams, but they never come to fruition. And now he's hurt again. At some point you just kind of got to move on.
Yeah. Buxton, I think Austin still is rostering him. I think he just could be cut. Like honestly, like
Yeah.
he's 31 or 30. He's either 30 or 31. It's not. It is what it is at this point. It's not happening.
Yeah, he's got the body of like a 45-year-old at this
Yeah.
point. It's held together by duct tape and staples. So, and it seems like that's the Minnesota way, right? Like, look at Royce Lewis for me, or Carlos Correa, or
Yeah.
Byron Buxton. It's something's going on in the trainers room in Minnesota, and it's not a good thing. So, I kind of regret investing in twins because it's just something there that seems to be amiss. But so those are good positives. I also think there's been a lot of really good standout performances for the first month of the year. Some unforeseen, some that you can bank on. Namely, I think some of the MVPs, if we were to look at strictly numbers, Ohtani's just a freak. Like I just can't get over. He moves leagues. He moves. He's got the elbow, and he just continues to rake. He steals. His on base percentage. So I think far and away, to me, Ohtani's been, the MVP of the first half. But Ellie De La Cruz, I think that you can make a case for him. Mookie Betts, especially what a freak to be able to just slide over the shortstop and not miss a beat and be willing to do so. Just unbelievable. Gunnar Henderson, I think, has really propelled, McCarthy's team, and he seems pretty legit as well. And then
I think so.
I throw Ozuna on there because he's tied for the league lead in home runs. He's the league leader in RBIs.
Mm-hmm.
My team sucks with him, so I can only imagine how bad my team would suck without him. And then
I know that's a little alarming. You have Soto and him, and it's still. I mean, I guess it's balanced out by Glaber just being awful, a 0.
And I'm just should I have cut him 3 weeks ago? Likely. I just can't get there.
That's tough because he's been pretty solid the last few years. I don't think we're at that point yet. I don't think we're at the point of you're gonna cut Bichette, Glaber, like those type of players. It's those could burn you.
Yeah.
But if you guys, I have the number 1 waiver wire pick. So if you guys want to, I'm just saving it for when this happens. So.
Yeah, that's now I have to keep him because I know what will happen if I don't. Yeah, and it's tough too because on draft deadline night, my original 10 did actually not include Gleyber Torres. I had Spencer Steer ahead of him, and then it was that night I read that they were going to hit Gleyber Torres leadoff, and I was like, "Oh, I'm in, all in." Oh. And how quickly he lost that leadoff spot, and then he lost the 4th spot. And now I think he's hitting 7th. It's gotten bad, and Spencer Steer is obviously a Swiss Army knife that would have been really useful right now. But hey, you live by the choices. I think some other ones that stand out. Bobby Witt Jr. is a fantasy stud, obviously, and he's really helped Ferrara navigate his injuries. So he's been extremely important to him. Kyle Tucker is, in my opinion, far and away Comtois's best player. Yeah. Trout was off to a great start. Obviously, and then he'll miss most of the year. And then Tatis is back. He looks every bit as studly as he did, prior to his vacation from his ringworm cream that he used. So that's a scary thought when, Bed-Stuy doesn't need any more reinforcements. But those guys, I think, have all just been standout, top of the class. Any additional ones that stand out to you that you think are worth mentioning?
I mean, CJ Abrams has been really fantastic for my team, and a lot of the underlying stats back it up. I mean, we talked about Jerry Jones to death already. Sonny Gray for Corey, he's been lights out since he's been back. Trying to think.
Yeah, Sonny Gray has been a stud.
Yeah, he's been great. I'd say Glass now for you. Like he's at least so far, he's probably the Cy Young favorite in the
Yeah.
NL. Um,
There's been a lot of great pitching. Like I think the pitching has definitely outweighed the hitting so far this year, and and some of them are just like super surprises, right? Like I didn't realize until I started researching this, Ranger Suarez like
he's
has
been
been
great.
crushing it this year.
Yeah,
So there are a lot of really standout pitching performances that make it hard to compete too. I think last week, I think I lost pitching categories in my ERA, I think was 3, maybe like barely over like 3 point something. And I lost pitching category, all of them. And, I feel like in years past, that would have been a really good week. So
it seems like it's. I think you're right. It seems like the ball. It's like almost like a dead ball again. Like offense seems down like across the board. Like at least so far. Like I think I'm winning OBP. I think I'm second in OBP this week at 325, and that's not good.
No.
Like,
Honestly, and that's what's like having like Freeman, Soto, Judge historically. Those OBP was like something I felt like I usually could hang my hat on, and I think this week my OBP is like 280 or something.
Yeah, that's just for you. That's like a fluke week. Like that's your best. That's your best category.
Yeah, that is not ideal. But I do think that with having so many, with the pitching performances being what they are, I do think it's actually playing a factor that we have the 10 start cap this year, because teams, any team that does have, goes 4 or 5 deep on some of these pitchers that are having great performances so far, it's such a massive advantage, and I know, like for myself, I think that's where my shortcoming is for the most part, because I don't think this week I got to 10 starts, and when you look at who's available on the waiver wire, not too good.
It's actually kind of hard to get to 10 starts. Like 10 starts you can feel good about.
Yes.
It unless you have like 2-start pitchers that week, it's kind of tough. So
yeah.
I'm happy we set it at 10 and not 12 like we discussed.
Me too. And I like it because I like that we have this in place, because I think the it's really strategic. I love seeing the different strategies play out, because you have somebody like Socho who clearly isn't, we've had the 25 inning issue, but they're chasing, trying to chase the save holds, the ERA, the whip. So it's fun to see the different strategies at play. And I don't think it would have been as strategic if we didn't have that cap, because people might just be churning and trying to just build up Ks and build up these things. So I like the direction that we've gone with this. I think it's impacting the competition, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this is one of the better changes we've made, and this is something that should stick. I don't see why we would deviate from this in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I'm hoping the last 2 years, the majority of the changes are behind us now, and we can kind of go for a few seasons without many further, substantial changes like we've had. Because I think the league right now is in a pretty good place competitively, for sure, if you look up and down the standings, but also from a structural standpoint. I'm really pleased so far with the first month. I think everybody's, done well with rolling with the punches and the changes that we've made. And I haven't really heard anything negative or complaints. Whereas this time last year, I had several complaints about CBS, launched in my direction, or, and it's great. I think everyone is happy with the product that is going on this season so far.
The league definitely seems more engaged so far this year. So that part's good. I mean, besides, the only complaint I've gotten is, with Socho not making the 25 innings. Because if that continues, it's gonna impact the standings.
Yeah, I agree. And, hopefully that will be behind us now, and we can all meet the very minimum that's required, because obviously it's not a high standard to have to meet.
No.
And, we need to make sure that in a gentleman's league like this is that everybody's putting in their best faith effort to, at least not everybody's going to be as competitive as another team, but, at least do what your bare minimum is required of you to do. So I don't think it's too much to ask. And I think that we can get there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to do like a quick look at next week and then wrap this up?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me pull up next week's schedule if you want to kind of kick it off.
I think matchup of the week is definitely you. I think it's definitely you and Golden Tee. You're both coming off of kind of tough losses, and I think you're both, especially in your position, you're more desperate for a win than him, I would say. So
desperation is certainly growing.
Yeah,
that is for sure.
And then I also think Milltown. I'd say like Milltown Bed-Stuy is like the second best matchup of the week, because this is Milltown's going to build off this momentum with you, go into Sam, and I think he's more desperate too. I think he's gonna try to beat Sam, and I just don't know if Sam's putting forth his best foot to actually win so far. So.
Yeah, I think that there's actually something at play here with South Carolina and Socho as well. I think they're both fringy playoff teams, and you kind of gotta stack tiebreakers at some point.
You do, yeah.
So you could see something there with them down the road, and then I'm intrigued to see. Are you going for the 10-0 win over Four Horsemen, or how do you think this shakes out?
I doubt it, because that's really tough, like to get 10-0. I think I'll win based on he's given up, which is nice for me. Like I'm gonna just build my cushion even more, I guess. But I think I'll win at least 6-4.
Yeah, that and truly that was probably the ominous sign from my team from week 1. I only beat him 5-4-1, and he was literally rebuilding. So that's never good. Yeah, and then I guess the only other matchup that we really didn't touch on is Hupea and Theo. And again,
that's an intriguing one. That's intriguing.
It is, because I don't think Theo has necessarily the bats to be real competitive as far as for a championship. But his arms right now are certainly, championship caliber. He leads the league in ERA. He leads the league in WHIP. So, there's a lot to like there. Acuna was not on the list of players who have underperformed because
he could have been. I forgot.
He could have been because there's really been no power yet. So, Theo really needs to see him get going if he's going to have a puncher's chance as he starts taking on, higher quality competition. But, I think that the next week's matchup will help continue to paint a picture of, where things are going, who are pretenders, who are more contenders. And I completely agree with you. McCarthy's always a tough matchup. So if we find ourselves getting buried again and we start slipping even further and further behind, I think I think by Memorial Day, teams kind of know whether or not they're in it or they're going to start pivoting. And, there's like 4 weeks for the clump of myself and Socho and Theo. And I'd even put Milltown in there a little bit to figure out like who's separating from who. But it's awesome because it's fun to be 1 month into the season and have so many teams floating around 500. A few games under, a few games over, and have some parity, which I think is always what our goal should be.
It should definitely help with keeping people like engaged, longer. Because so far, like just like you said, like 2 through 10 or 2 through 11, even it's really close. So
yeah, no, it's awesome. So hopefully, we'll do the podcast every couple of weeks or so. Get some teams on here as the season starts unfolding. Especially once we get into more of a season where trades start happening and things start picking up. But do you have anything else that you wanted to throw out there before we sign off?
No, I just say if you are watching and you're interested in being on the podcast, like, please reach out. I mean, definitely would be good for the league to get this going, like, at least, here and there, because it's been at this point, like 4 years since we've done this. So
yeah. No, and the less you have to hear my voice or Ryan's voice, I think it's definitely the better. I don't know if it's coming through, but allergies are really doing a number to mine. So would love to pass the microphone on to somebody else and get some others, get their perspectives in here, which is always good. But other than that, I would say let's stay active, keep meeting those innings deadlines, really important, and just have fun. Like, get the banter going, and let's continue to get after it. It's fantasy baseball, and it's awesome that On Deck is still thriving.
Yeah, sounds good. But all right, thanks for doing this. I'll see you next time.
All right, guys, take care.